July 1943. Under a moonlit Sicilian sky, everything that could go wrong nearly did. Again. At the centre of this chaos stood a single steel bridge over Simeto River, Primosole Bridge. Its capture would open the road to Catania and crack the Axis defences in the area. This is the story of Operation Fustian, where courage, confusion and costly lessons shaped the future of airborne warfare. The Allied invasion of Sicily, known as Operation Husky, was a major campaign of World War II to invade the island of Sicily in July 1943, where the 1st Parachute Brigade, nicknamed the Red Devils, led by Brigadier Gerald Ladbroke, on the 9th of the 13th and the 14th of July, were to secure the Primosole Bridge to the port city of Catania. They were then to hold the bridge until relieved by the British 8th Army, which was advancing slowly from the landing beaches some distance away. Like Operation Ladbroke before, there was a plan to partly deliver troops with a glider-borne air force. Anti-tank guns and jeeps were also to be transported by glider, a new innovation. The heaviest weapons carried were the 3-inch mortar and the Vickers machine gun. Operation Fustian was only days after Operation Ladbroke and had little opportunity to learn from the disastrous mistakes. The paratroops had 2 drop zones either side of the bridge, while the gliders also had 2 separate landing zones. Once regrouped at assembly points, the teams would proceed to attack the bridge from both sides. The 2nd Parachute Battalion were to land south on Drop Zone 3, near Gornalunga Canal. They would occupy the hills, codenamed Johnny 1, 2 and 3, and defend against counterattacks. The 3rd Parachute Battalion would land at Drop Zone 4, north of the bridge, and defend against counterattacks from Catania. The glider force had 2 landing areas, 7 north of the river and 8 south of the river. Pathfinders from the 21st Independent Parachute Company would illuminate the drop zones, an innovation using Rebecca and Eureka beacons. Royal Air Force advisors recommended the American pilots to adopt the Royal Air Force bomber stream formation, and this was for the aircraft to fly in pairs, one flying 1 minute behind the other, rather than the standard V formation. The American pilots, already lacking nighttime navigation experience, rejected this advice. Unrelated to Operation Fustian, No. 3 Commando undertook a separate operation to capture the Malati Bridge. The reserve force tasked to relieve the paratroops was the British 13th Corps, had already been fighting for 3 days in temperatures reaching 100 Fahrenheit and 38 degrees centigrade. They were already suffering from heat exhaustion. Montgomery, he expected them to advance about 25 miles, 40 kilometres, in only 24 hours, in the summer and in combat. The British 8th Army had arrived with limited transport, so the 50th Northumbrian Infantry Division were going to have to do it on foot. The Italian Army force near Primosole Bridge was the 213 Coastal Division, led by General Carlo Gotti. Their morale was low and they were poorly equipped. The Germans were well aware of the strategic importance of holding the bridge and sent reinforcements. The German 1st Parachute Division, the 1st Fallschirmjäger, a paratroop battalion. This elite German unit were accidentally dropped into the areas marked out as landing zones for the British. It was warned to expect a seaborne or airborne landing at night. The 400 feet or 120 metre steel Primosole Bridge had 2 pillboxes built on each side. The Axis troops gathered at the bridge. The German engineers began to form a defensive line to the north and the south of the bridge. They dug in 2,000 yards, 1,800 metres south of the Primosole Bridge. So what happened? On the 13th of July 1943, 105 Douglas C-47 Skytrains took off from North Africa carrying the 1,856 men of the 1st Parachute Brigade. 33 aircraft strayed off course early on and approached an Allied convoy. They were fired upon, friendly fire. 2 of the planes collided and crashed into the sea. 2 others were shot down, and 9 heavily damaged aircraft limped back to North Africa. The surviving aircraft were being flown by inexperienced pilots and facing Axis anti-aircraft guns. They lost a further 11 aircraft. A further 10 were damaged and aborted their mission. The aircraft had now broken formation, and this caused the parachute drop to be across a wide area. The first planes arrived over the drop zones at 10:20 in the evening. Only 39 planes managed to drop their paratroops within half a mile or less than a kilometre of the correct drop zone, but some landed 12 miles 19 kilometres away from target. The British No. 38 Wing Royal Air Force supplied Armstrong Whitworth, Albemarle's and Hadley Page Halifaxes to tow 11 Horsa gliders and 8 Waco gliders. The gliders carried 77 men, 10 6-pounder anti-tank guns and 18 jeeps. 2 aircraft towing Waco gliders crashed into the ground on takeoff. 1 glider was released prematurely from its towing aircraft and crashed into the sea. 4 gliders were shot down by coastal anti-aircraft batteries. The remaining gliders arrived at their landing zones 2 hours after the paratroops had already landed, meaning the German defences were waiting for them. Only 4 Horsa gliders managed to land, mostly intact. The others were destroyed by machine gun fire on their approach. The British 1st Parachute Brigade in the southern drop zone now faced the 1st Fallschirmjäger Battalion. Around 100 British paratroops were captured as soon as they landed. By 4:30 in the morning, on the 14th of July, 50 men of the 1st Parachute Battalion took control of Primosole Bridge before the Italian defenders could detonate it, but the Fallschirmjäger Battalion remained dug into the south. The 2nd Parachute Battalion had occupied the 3 hills, Johnnies 1, 2 and 3, and they had taken 500 Italian prisoners. The 3rd Parachute Battalion had been scattered across a wide area, and very few had arrived anywhere near the bridge. Brigadier Ladbroke arrived with an additional 40 paratroopers, and they began removing demolition charges from the bridge and set up a defensive perimeter. With further arrivals, the 1st Parachute Brigade defended the bridge with 295 men, 3 anti-tank guns, 2 3-inch mortars and a Vickers machine gun, dug into the north and the south of the bridge. The field headquarters and the field ambulance main dressing station were set up to the south side of the bridge and began to treat casualties. The 10th Arditi Regiment began to attack the British positions on the north end of the bridge, but they were beaten back. The Fallschirmjäger Paratroop Battalion attacked south at dawn with machine guns and mortars. In their second assault, they captured Hill Johnny 2. At 9 a.m, an artillery observer with the 2nd Parachute Battalion called in the British cruiser HMS Newfoundland to shell the Fallschirmjäger positions, and this suppressed further German attacks. To the north of the bridge, a German battle group of 350 men, including an anti-aircraft battery and anti-tank guns, joined the 10th Arditi Commando Regiment with 56 men and 6 heavily armed SPA Fiberti AS-42 armoured cars. The first attack on the bridge at 2 o'clock in the afternoon was beaten back. The second attack took prisoners and nearly reached the bridge. At this point, less than 200 British troops had held Primosole Bridge for nearly 24 hours, despite shelling, mortar fire, being strafed from the air, all along waiting to be reinforced. By 5 o'clock in the evening, the 1st Parachute Battalion, almost out of ammunition and having taken heavy casualties, withdrew to the southern side of the bridge. The night-time attacks by the Italians between 14th and the 15th of July were by the Italian Black Shirt Commandos using armoured cars. They were crossing the Primosole Bridge but were being pushed back. The 16th Parachute Field Ambulance Casualty Station continued to function surrounded by the battle. They were treating casualties from both sides, 62 British and 29 German and Italian. The 50th Northumbrian Infantry Division reached Lentini in the afternoon of the 14th of July, and here they faced road debris, snipers and machine gunners. They spent the rest of the day cleaning up Lentini when their orders were to proceed directly to Primosole Bridge. The limited available transportation was with the East Yorkshire Regiment held up by resistance in nearby Carlentini. By 5 o'clock in the evening, the 5th Battalion East Yorkshire Regiment had reached, cleared and crossed the Malati Bridge. They had also been marching and fighting all the way from the landing beaches. By the night of the 14th of July, only some of the 6th Battalion Durham Light Infantry and some tanks had proceeded and arrived within 1 mile of Hill Johnny 2. The others had stopped in Lentini for the night. At dawn on the 15th of July, the surviving 1st Parachute Brigade and the 50th Northumbrian Division attacked together, taking over the main dressing station. 3 Sherman tanks reached the bridge but were knocked out by German 88 artillery guns. The 9th Battalion Durham Light Infantry and the 44th Royal Tank Regiment suffered 100 casualties and 34 killed as they attacked the German and Italian positions. The Fallschirmjäger Battalion withdrew to the north bank of the river, enabling the Durhams to set up at the south end of the bridge. In the afternoon, the Germans failed to destroy the bridge with trucks loaded with explosives. The 9th Battalion Durham Light Infantry continued attacking the bridge through the night of the 15th and the 16th of July. This was partly a diversion, as at 2 a.m. on the 16th of July, Lieutenant Colonel Pearson and parts of the 8th Battalion Durham Light Infantry crossed the Simeto River at a small ford and set up on the northern bank. The Italian 372nd Coastal Battalion and the 29th Artillery Battalion held their ground until Major Bolla realised that the Fallschirmjäger unit had quietly retreated. Bolla promptly did the same with his troops to avoid being surrounded, but the British eventually retook the bridge. The 1st Parachute Brigade was finally relieved by the 50th Northumbrian Infantry Division at 7 a.m. on the 16th of July. By 10 a.m. on the 16th of July, the British had expanded the bridgehead and tanks and anti-tank guns were able to freely cross the bridge. However, the delayed capture of Primosole Bridge enabled the Germans to regroup. During Operation Fustian, of the original 1,856 1st Parachute Brigade troops, around 141 were dead and 168 were missing or wounded. So what was the aftermath? The operation was successful, but hampered due to the impact of the friendly fire incident and the failure to drop the paratroops near the drop zones. The delays in the recapture of the Primosole Bridge did not achieve the rapid progress to Catania that Montgomery had hoped for. An inquiry into the problems of the airborne missions in Sicily resulted in a number of recommendations. Aircrew had to be trained in parachute and glider operations. Pathfinders needed more time to set up the landing beacons. The landing plans were simplified in the future with less landing areas. The glider landing zones were made much bigger. Pilot training in the glider pilot regiment was improved. Inter-aircraft communication was also improved. Gliders were no longer released at night while still over water. More training was given to ships' crews in aircraft recognition, and Allied aircraft were painted with 3 large white stripes on their wings. This was to reduce the risk of friendly fire in the future. Number 38 Wing, Royal Air Force, was expanded, with more Halifax, Albemarles and Stirlings to reduce the reliance on American aircraft and pilots. The Allies began to train for delivering jeeps and artillery guns by air, carrying them in bomb bays and parachuting them into combat, something they'd done previously only for the SAS. The lessons learned from the near disastrous airborne drops in Sicily led to more successful operations in Italy, Normandy and southern France. Click here to get even closer to Italy and Sicily.